Now, one super important thing to this model is going to be that floor. If we look at that floor again, you'll see that it is the showcase of the rendering, or of the photo, I should say, and it needs to be the showcase of our rendering. So let's look at that. Okay, I have to admit I've been cheating a little bit and working outside of class without you guys, but that's okay. Whoa, where'd my picture go? Let me bring that back up. Okay, here it is. I've been working outside of class, and on the left here you can see my rendering, what I've come up with so far, and on the right here is the photograph. You can see I'm getting pretty close on that floor. It's not perfect, but it's pretty cool anyway. I think I'm really satisfied with the way the floors come out, and it is hard. There's some weird things over here that don't look right, but this reflection in here is really difficult. So I'm pretty happy with the way it's coming out now. Let me show you some tips about how I've done this, because it's pretty complicated actually. And the principles are simple, but tweaking it to get it just right is really hard. So you can see that actually my image on the left I think is looking really close to on the right. Obviously I haven't added in all the details yet, but needless to say, this floor is a very important part of the rendering. It takes up a big chunk of it, and it's got to look right. So let's talk about how we can create that. What I did and what I've found is that the best thing to do is actually model the floor. And I'll show you some reasons for that as we go along. But let's talk about how we could do that. What I did was I just started with a very basic shape. And it will represent one plank of that floor. And we'll say it's 4 inches wide for each plank. 6 feet wide, I guess. And then length is 4 inches. Okay, so we'll make it that size. And that's very simple. Let's extrude that down about 1/2 inch. 0.5 inches. No. 0.5 inches. Like that. And then just convert it to edit poly. And there's a reason for the process that we're doing here. Now what we do is, this is going to be its own element. And we're going to copy that element all around to create our wood floor. So copy to clone to element, make sure it lines up right here. And this particular floor actually has no gaps or anything between planks. There's no bevel on the planks. If it did, obviously you'd want to chamfer it. So you have a little bevel, and it could be tiny like that. But this floor really is just gonna be laid right up against each other. So it's okay to leave it like that. Now what you're going to do is take this row and lock it in. Make sure you're moving in the Y only. What's going on here? I need to be in element mode. Select the elements. And there we go. Clone to element. Now this one's going to be offset, right? So move in the X and just put it about right there, and you should be good. Now what we do is take these two together, clone in the Y, do it over and over again, and it'll grow exponentially because you keep on adding upon itself. And it actually isn't that hard because it is growing exponentially. So make a big enough chunk of this that it will just cover your whole floor. And you don't even need to make it very clean. It can overlap on the edges because we're not going to see outside of the walls. So let's move this into place here like that, and then take all of these and start cloning them to the right like that. Should fit right in there. It does. Clone again. Okay, so this part's boring, obviously. I'll come back when I'm finished. Okay, now I have my floor in there, and when I put my walls in, it doesn't matter if my floor overlays or overlaps my walls. I might want to go in and delete some of these pieces and these pieces so that light is bouncing properly, because when I put wood floor on this and the sun's coming down, it's going to bounce off that and bounce red up onto my ceiling, so that'll be inaccurate. So you might want to clean this up a little bit, but for the most part it can just kind of overlap the edges, and that is fine. So why did we model it this way, you might ask? Well, let's get into what I did here. The basics of what I did is pretty simple. If we go into the type of material that we want here, and it's going to be a multi-sub-object material, which is just standard. Keep all this sub, that's fine. But we want to change that sub material to a V-Ray material. Just like that. And let's put some random color on here. And then copy it down a couple different times. Let's say 4 times. And we'll put different colors on each one like this. Great. Now this is the basic principle I use to create the floor. It still takes a really nice material, but it also takes this little method that I'm about to show you. If we apply this to the floor, this multi-sub-object material, and then put a modifier on here called material by element, and then say random distribution by ID count 4, because we have 4 different materials in there, right? And let's make, I made these all too similar. Let's make that one. And then this one needs to be different too. There we go. Now what it does is randomly distribute all 4 of those different materials throughout my floor material. So how do we use that with a really awesome map to make that wood floor look like that? Well, we'll have to go over that in the next video. But that is the material by element, and that is the basics of how we created this floor. Now if you wanted a more chaotic floor, you could actually put a little noise modifier on here. Scale it down to about 1 and say, let's turn up the strength to 1/2 inch in the Z direction. And that means that randomly the points on these planks will be moved up by 1/2 inch in a random pattern based on that noise. So you can see some planks are up, some planks are down. Right there, right there. Okay, so that adds a little bit of randomness, and you can do it in all axes. But in this one, that would cause problems because things would start overlapping, and you don't want that. So in the Z-axis, you can just do that, and you can see it starts warping your floor. Interesting. So you'd want that to be very subtle, obviously. And in this case, it's actually a very flat floor. Any bump that it has, I will create with the material. So that is the basic building blocks for that really cool wood floor that I had that looks like this right here on the left. I'll show you how to use this with a really nice map to make this happen in the next video.